Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week as always, and as always, I'd like to thank the following people that sent me a lot of these. It always helps me out, and that is Jason Dance, David Walker, Jacqueline Wolf, and Barrett Peterson. Thank you so much. And if you have a tip for me, please send it my way, and I'm happy to give you a shout out here and on my nationally syndicated radio show as well. And with that, let's start in China, because we are talking about a Chinese Android developer known as Eskyfun, because they potentially leaked the data of approximately 1 million of their users and exposed a server containing 134 gigabytes of data. Now, this server apparently had all kinds of information on its users that wasn't properly locked down, though I don't have a full listing for you. But if you use games by Eskyfun, such as Rainbow Story, Fantasy MMORPG, Metamorph M, and Dynasty Heroes Legend of Samcock, heads up to you. You may have been exposed. Moving on, let's talk about the DuPage Medical Group here in Illinois. They are the largest independent physicians groups. They are notifying 600,000 of their patients that their personal information may have been compromised during a July cyber attack. We are talking names, addresses, dates of birth, diagnostic codes, identifying medical procedures and treatment dates, and also for a small number of people, social security numbers may have been compromised. I've also read the lawsuits are coming, so heads up to you if you use DuPage Medical Group in Illinois. Moving on. Let's talk about the Dallas Independent School District. They are one of the largest school districts in the United States, as Dallas, I believe, is in the top 10. I think they're like number 3 or 4. Maybe that's Houston. Either way, Dallas is huge. Now, they released an advisory saying that the personal data of students and employees was accessed and downloaded during a data security incident. Although the investigation is still ongoing, they believe someone accessed the school district's network, downloaded the data, and temporarily stored it in an encrypted cloud storage site. Now, the notice claims that this data has been, quote, removed from the site, but they don't explain how this was done, whether the data was put somewhere else or sent to someone else. So we are still gathering this information. But the data that we are looking at here is first and last names, addresses, phone numbers, social security, dates of birth for current and former students, employees, and parents. Now, some students even had information about their custody status and or medical condition exposed. So obviously, some kids have custody things or, medical issues a school needs to be aware of so that they can, properly handle the children. Here we are. So if you are in the Dallas School District, specifically the Independent School District, ISD, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about the city of Role. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. They are located near Lake Geneva in Switzerland. They actually acknowledged, and this is interesting, that they initially misjudged the impact of a recent ransomware attack that reportedly led to the leak of residents' data on the dark web. Now, Monique Cholat Pugnali, and I know I am butchering her name, I apologize, Monique. She's the administrative chief of Raleigh, initially downplayed the impact, saying in a statement given to basically a Swiss news outlet that it had been a quote-unquote weak attack. But after the Swiss news agency Watson reported that cyber criminals started posting large numbers of confidential documents basically from the city and basically also showed up on a extortion site in the dark web, officials acknowledged that they had, quote, underestimated the severity of the incident. The Vice Society ransomware gang is blamed for this one. So heads up to you, citizens of Role, Switzerland. Moving on, let's talk about an unnamed New York credit union. And this is also another interesting one. Juliana Barile, she's a former employee of a New York credit union, pleaded guilty to accessing the financial institution's computer systems without authorization and then destroying over 21 gigabytes of data in a revenge for being fired. That's right, this is an insider threat. Huge problem. Now, according to court documents, the defendant worked remotely as a part-time employee for this credit union, unnamed as I've mentioned, until May 19th of this year when she was terminated, even though a credit union employee had asked the bank's IT support, basically the outsourced IT support firm, to disable the remote access to Ms. Barile's remote access. They didn't remove it, and 2 days later, on May 21st, she logged back in for roughly 40 minutes. She deleted over 20,000 files in 3,500 folders during that time, totaling roughly 21.3 gigabytes of data. This basically wiped out files, including those related to customers' mortgage loan applications and the financial institution's anti-ransomware protection software as well. So, insider threats are a huge thing. When you are terminating somebody You have to have these things in place before the termination, takes happen. You coordinate that. You cut off her access and disable the accounts or delete the accounts within, let's say, 5 minutes of that final meeting to say adios. So that is a huge thing. We always have to make sure we're vigilant about these. I'm talking to you IT support folks out there. Don't delay when there's terminations afoot. Moving on. Let's talk about thousands of different iCloud accounts. And this is another interesting one because a California man has pled guilty to 4 felonies after breaking into thousands of iCloud accounts in an attempt to steal and share nude images of women. And this is according to a report from the LA Times. Now, the man admitted to impersonating Apple's customer support representatives, tricking these people into providing them with their Apple ID login information. And there you go. He gained access. Now, according to federal authorities, court documents, and an FBI investigation, 40-year-old Hao Ku Chi gained access to these photos and videos of at least 306 victims and built a collection of 620,000 photos and 9,000 videos, which he was hosting in his Dropbox account. He would then organize these images by whether the account contained a win of nude images, according to the FBI. Now, the investigation revealed that Mr. Chi posed as a technical support agent capable of breaking into iCloud accounts to steal photos, and he marketed and advertised himself as iCloud Ripper for You, and would oftentimes seek out victims based on requests from other people, meaning you could go to him and say, hey, I will pay you, can you get into my ex's whatever, and here we are. Now, that is basically what was happening. So Mr. Chai would receive a request to break into somebody's iCloud account, then approach the person under the guise of an Apple support employee. And I think it really behooves everybody to understand that Apple support will never ever contact you unless you contact them first. Google, Facebook, I don't care. They don't want to hear from you. Microsoft, they're not going to proactively reach out to you in some way, shape, or form unless it's like in a form letter en masse saying we've all been hit. So make sure that when Apple support is contacting you, all of your alarm bells should be going off. Now, with that, let's move on because we've got more to cover, because now we're going to be talking about the Fortress S03 Wi-Fi home security system. You know where I'm going with this, but this one isn't necessarily a breach, although it can be a breach for you because this is a vulnerability that I want to alert you all to. Now, new vulnerabilities have been discovered in the Fortress S03 Wi-Fi home security system that could potentially be abused by a malicious party to gain unauthorized access into your home to alter your system's behavior, including disarming the device without your knowledge. Now, basically, this Fortress system is a do-it-yourself or like a DIY alarm system that enables you to basically secure your home or small business from burglars. It has detections for fires, gas leaks, water leaks, all that kind of stuff by leveraging Wi-Fi and RFID technology for keyless entry. Now, researchers over at Rapid7 called these vulnerabilities, quote, trivially easy to exploit. Now, Rapid7 also said that it notified Fortress of these bugs on May 13th of this year, and the company closed that report 11 days later on May 24th. So I'm not sure if these Fortress has fully patched these or not, but if you have a Fortress security system at home, heads up to you. There's apparently a very easy way to get in there. So when Fortress releases those updates, you update as well. Moving on, let's talk about 2 United Kingdom voice over IP providers, a South Coast-based VoIP Unlimited and one based in London called VoIP Phone with an F, not a PH. Now, VoIP Unlimited has confirmed that it basically was slapped with a, quote, colossal ransom demand after being hit by a sustained and large-scale directed denial of service attack, and it believes it originated from the Russian cyber criminal gang Revil, which is really interesting because Revil closed up shop a while back. Now, separately, the London-based VoIP Phone said that it was still suffering outages on voice inbound and outbound calls, as well as its text SMS services. It told customers this past Tuesday in a status update that it had been hit by a further DDoS attack after the initial attack, and then basically they revealed to their customers via email as this having taken place over a Monday bank holiday in the UK. So heads up to you, citizens of the UK, if you use VoIP Unlimited or VoIP Phone with an F. Moving on. Let's talk about Cream Finance. This is a crypto exchange that started in August of 2020. Attackers have stolen more than $29 million US in cryptocurrency assets from Cream Finance and their decentralized finance, or DeFi, platform. Now, the company confirmed the security breach via Twitter, and according to Cream Finance, attackers conducted a, quote, re-entrancy attack in its flash loan feature to steal 418,311,571 in AMP tokens and 1,308.09 in Ethereum coins. Now, the term flash loan refers to a contract or script that runs on the Ethereum blockchain that allows Cream Finance users to take out quick loans from the company's funds and then return them at a later date. And a re-entrancy attack consists basically of withdrawing funds repeatedly before the original transaction is approved or declined, or the funds need to be returned. And so by virtue of that, as basically in that gap, in that waiting phase, they're starting to take out more. And here we are. Obviously a very huge problem. So hopefully Cream Finance will get that straightened out, but odds are they're out $29 million US. Moving on. Let's talk about Bangkok Airlines, or Airways, excuse me. They just apologized for a data breach involving passport information and other personal data in a statement to customers. They said that they discovered a cybersecurity attack which resulted in unauthorized and unlawful access to its information systems on August 23rd of this year. And the company said they are, quote, deeply sorry for the worry and inconvenience that this malicious incident has caused. I don't have more information than that, but heads up if you fly with Bangkok Airways. Moving on, let's talk about Indonesia's Ministry of Communications and Informatics. They're investigating a leak over 1 million records from the nation's COVID-19 quarantine management app known as EHAC, E-H-A-C. The EHAC data was, quote, completely unsecured and unencrypted when accessing it, according to researchers that found this open from VPN Mentor. They were able to, quote, manipulate the URL search criteria into exposing schemata from a single index at any time. So heads up to you if you're in Indonesia and you're using EHAC, the COVID-19 quarantine management app, you have been exposed. Moving on. Let's talk about Coalinga State Hospital in sunny California. This past Friday, the Department of State Hospitals announced a privacy breach at the Coalinga State Hospital. Officials say an employee improperly gave confidential information to the United States District Court, Eastern District of California, on nearly 1,800 current and former patients. Now, these breaches happened on July 21st of 2013, October 12th of 2016, and August 27th of 2019. Some of the information given to the court contains patient names, birth dates, legal commitment information, and admission dates. Officials say the employee provided this information to decide if the patients were able to waive fees for filing a lawsuit. While some of the information is not a breach of privacy, the Department of State Hospitals says that it's required to disclose this breach because federal and state privacy laws do not allow some of that information to be released if a lawsuit was never filed with the court. In other words, I am very curious to understand why this was given to courts. Usually you need a warrant because essentially this is a massive violation of HIPAA coming out of Coalinga State Hospital in California. So heads up to you. And finally, and we have two finalies for you. The first one we're going to actually be talking about is WhatsApp. WhatsApp is basically the privacy violating security app that Facebook claims is actually secure for private communications, and we will get to that. It's been a long time coming, but Facebook is finally feeling some heat from Europe's much trumpeted data protection regime, which is Ireland's Data Protection Commission, because they just announced a 225 million euro or 267 million US fine for WhatsApp. Now, the Facebook-owned messaging app has been under investigation by the Irish DPC as a greater hole in the GDPR for the EU, and basically the Irish DPC is the lead data supervisor in the EU, and they've been investigating since December of 2018. Several months after the first complaints were basically fired at WhatsApp over how it processes user data under the Europe's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, which essentially came into effect in May of 2018. So, despite receiving a number of complaints about WhatsApp, the investigation undertaken by the DPC, essentially that's what's been was decided in terms of this fine, basically is what is known as its own volition inquiry, meaning the regulator selected the parameters of the investigation itself, choosing to fix on an audit of WhatsApp's transparency obligations. Now, if you didn't know, one of the key principles in the GDPR is that entities which are processing people's data must be clear, open, and honest with those European Union citizens about how their information will be used. No obfuscation is allowed. As an EU citizen, you have the right to know everything that they are doing with your data. Now, its inquiry considered whether or not WhatsApp fulfills transparency obligations to both users and non-users of its service. WhatsApp may, for example, upload phone numbers of non-users if a user agrees to essentially ingesting the phone book, which contains other people's personal data. So I don't have WhatsApp, you have WhatsApp, and I'm in your phone book because you email me or whatever. Now WhatsApp is ingesting my information thanks to you allowing it, and obviously you didn't get permission from me and the 800 other people in your address book. That's kind of what they're talking about here. But they're also, as well, looking at the transparency the platform offers over its sharing data, or rather how WhatsApp is sharing data with its parent entity, Facebook. In sum, the DPC found a wide range of transparency infringements by WhatsApp, and basically it spans multiple articles and statutes of the GDPR regulation, so it's a huge problem. In addition to issuing a sizable financial penalty, it has ordered WhatsApp to take a number of actions to improve the level of transparency it offers users and non-users, giving the tech giant a 3-month deadline for making all of these ordered changes. And for the record, the regulator was explicitly not looking into wider complaints, which have also obviously been leveled against Facebook's data mining empire, as well as, everything else that Facebook is doing. And that is basically a different tangent on that. So this was focused on WhatsApp and what it is sharing with Facebook. And I've done videos on WhatsApp before, not being as transparent, that Facebook is actually using artificial intelligence to actually read essentially what you're saying. They are claiming it's end-to-end encrypted, but anything with Facebook, they're reading it, they're data mining it. WhatsApp is not nearly as secure as a Signal or anything else. I would send nothing deeply personal over WhatsApp at this point. But a $260 million or so fine, is actually a really good start. But again, that's for Mark Zuckerberg, that's like a parking ticket, right? So here we are. But 267 million US, 225 million euros, WhatsApp is being fined, and I think it's a long time coming, and I'm hoping more are on the way. We need laws like that here in the United States. European citizens are way more protected than we are here. And finally, and this is the last finally we're going to be doing of the day, we're going to be talking about voting data from a Colorado county here in the United States. Now, this one actually happened around a month ago or so, but I was waiting for the dust to settle. This happened right around the time of Mike Lindell's, or you might know him as the My Pillow guy. He had his cyber symposium. I watched the whole thing. I did videos, articles, all that kind of stuff. But yes, there's actually a tie to this Colorado voting data to the My Pillow guy and the cybersecurity. And so, like I said, I wanted to wait till the dust settles, more information came in, and all of that. As I'm not diving into the political side of here, I just want to talk about the facts of the situation as we know it. And here is what's going on. Politics aside, I don't care what you believe. Sensitive data about voting equipment in Colorado's Mesa County was actually posted online. And at the center of this criminal investigation and how that information was released is the county clerk of Mesa County, Tina Peters, whose whereabouts is actually unknown right now. She hasn't returned to work in Mesa County since the data breach was announced, and that is the tie-in to Mike Lindell's cyber symposium. She was actually there. Now, the news of this criminal act was announced live, basically at the cyber symposium by Ron Watkins. You may know him as Code Monkey, one of the basically moderators and owners of 4chan, then 8chan, now 8kun, and all of that. Basically, he's also allegedly Q of QAnon fame. Many people, including a documentary on HBO, point to him as actually creating the entire QAnon ecosystem, that he is Q. And there's a lot of evidence in that HBO documentary that really does point to Mr. Watkins. Now, Mr. Watkins was allegedly looking at a forensic copy of a Dominion voting server live. I was actually watching this live. I was aptly watching this. I wanted to see what they were doing, but in the middle of that demonstration, which did not go well to begin with, that's a whole other story, his lawyer actually called him, Mr. Watkins' lawyer, and told him to basically stop doing this, and essentially because these were stolen and there's legal proceedings happening. And he also mentioned that Tina Peters was essentially named in this. Tina Peters was in the crowd at the Cyber Symposium. I actually saw her give speeches and all this kind of stuff as one of the many state and local legislators that showed up to that event. Now, here's the thing. One reason why the Mesa County security breach is particularly significant is because it uses equipment from Dominion Voting Systems, one of the country's biggest vendors of election equipment. The company is also at the center of many conspiracy theories around the 2020 election that claim the ballot counting was somehow rigged against former President Donald Trump. Again, not getting into this. I am not getting into the politics of that. I don't care what you believe, but that is essentially a fact on the ground. We've seen many of these conspiracy theories come up. Whether they're real or not, I leave that up to you. Now, Dominion is pursuing a number of defamation suits against pro-Trump news outlets as well as President Trump's advisors over the conspiracy theories, including Mr. Lindell, the MyPillow guy. Now, Ms. Peters is reportedly being sheltered by Mr. Lindell, who is facing lawsuits by Dominion Voting. If those reports are actually true, then Mr. Lindell could actually be facing criminal charges himself over this. Now, the problems at the clerk's office extend beyond Ms. Peters, though, because on Thursday, her deputy, Belinda Kinsley, or Nisley, was charged with second-degree burglary and a cybercrime over entering the building while she was suspended, pending an investigation into unprofessional and inappropriate conduct at the workplace. Earlier this week, Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold filed a lawsuit to prevent Peters from having any role in the county's upcoming fall election. Now, if there are any duplicates of Dominion voting servers that were put into the public, this is actually a grave security risk to the integrity of the election process where Dominion equipment is used, and it is used all over the country. Not 100%, but it is one of the big players that we have here in the United States is Dominion Voting. Now, the ability to understand how to tamper with or alter these machines could make it easy to do so for an upcoming election, meaning if somebody essentially got an image of this and it figures out how to manipulate it, they could potentially collude with somebody else to get access to these machines and manipulate it to make that vote whatever they wanted to make that vote. Now, Dominion is in a bind here because now they have to basically start changing their coding, their configuration, their security standards, and all of this to make these leaked images irrelevant. When I was watching this, basically Lindell came out and said, oh, we'll be supplying you a link. You can go download it yourself. I was really looking forward to that. And that obviously never materialized given all of the issues, legally that we saw here. But also, all of these counties that use their equipment need to be updating their equipment, and that's a massive and costly endeavor. These machines are usually under contract. Dominion comes and updates them, but usually what happens when you have a fleet of these things out there is that your patching cycles are different. Now, everybody is going to need this who has these, and assuming they're still under contract, that's a problem. If they're not under contract, maybe they're still using Dominion voting machines, but they're not getting the updates, and that's a huge problem too. So, let me say this. While there have been allegations of voter fraud or manipulation in the 2020 election, so far, and again, this is a fact, there has been no reporting by an official governing body, including Homeland Security CISA, if you recall Chris Krebs, former head of CISA, coming out and basically saying that, there was no indications of massive collusion anywhere in the country over this. That's an indisputable fact. Now, you might believe whatever you want to believe, but the fact is no governing body officially has come out and said this, and those governing bodies that would be in a position to actually validate this. I'm not talking about a political legislature that says one thing or the other. Actual Homeland Security type, law enforcement security type, none have actually said that. You can believe whatever you want, but that's the truth as of right now. Now, you may also believe that the election was tampered with, and I am not telling you to believe that or not. I am simply telling you here where everything stands. I really do not want to have people saying, oh, the election was rigged, or oh no, the election wasn't, or whatever that is. That's not why I'm saying this. These are the facts on the ground. Dominion has had a massive, basically voting data breach, and by virtue of this stolen thing from Miss Peters, or the allegedly from Miss Peters, and now that's going to cause a huge jeopardy in the 2022 election. And 2022 is going to be the most scrutinized election in history. And it would appear that if, like I said, these allegations of Ms. Peters are correct, we've got essentially 1 year to harden the election, and even more people could be looking at these stolen images, how they can tamper with things, and all of that. So this is a huge, huge mess. If we're going to secure the 2022 election to satisfaction, and I've written articles on the security lessons of the 2020 election and how we can do that, I'm hoping we can do that in time. So with that, good luck, my fellow Americans. I'll see you in 2022, and hopefully a little sooner than that. But those were your breaches of the week. We're just going to say everybody was affected. We usually are. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.